we have quorum. We can call meeting to order. I think in terms of the approval of the minutes, since we have one member absent tonight and another one is delayed, we'll table that for now.
Okay.
And maybe take it up later in the meeting, or we'll postpone the next meeting.
Hold on, Liz is here. So. She's
Okay.
not-
So let's move on to the first public hearing, which is notice of intent, Woodland Road. Installation of sidewalks along Woodland Road. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, excuse me just a second here, National Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, May 22nd, 2025 at 7 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located within the ROW, which is right of way, along Woodland Road between the intersection of Richards Road easterly to Oregon Road for the applicant William Cuniff, Southborough DPW. The project description is the installation of a sidewalk along Woodland Road.
Good evening. Just for the record, Scott Morrison. If you want, I've got a little slide presentation I can present if I can share my screen.
Yep. You're free to share. Go ahead.
Thank
Just
you.
1 second before you jump in. Lara, I do think that we're still waiting for a DEP number.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so we won't be able to close tonight. And do we want to combine Woodland with Richard at the same time?
It makes sense. I've got two separate presentations, but I don't think it hurts to open them both up.
Yeah, why don't we do that? And that way, you've got a little bit more time to go ahead and do that. And since we don't have a DEP number for either one, we have to continue anyways. All right, so let me open up 710 as well now. So Richards Road.
Mark, I don't think you can open it until 7:10.
What time is it now? Oh,
7:04.
all right, you got a good point.
Sorry.
Yep. All right. So when it gets to be 7:10, I'll interrupt. We'll open it then. Go ahead, Scott. You went back on mute. Scott, you're on mute.
You're muted.
Still on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So this is the Woodland Road Pedestrian Improvement Projects in Southborough. The improvement project consists of sidewalks to provide safe place for pedestrians. The proposed sidewalk is on the east side of Woodland Road from Richards Road to Oregon Road. A crosswalk will connect the proposed sidewalk to the Richards Road project, which we discussed earlier that will be in a subsequent hearing in a few minutes. Sidewalk network will lead to the Mary Finn School. We, just for the record too, we broke this up into separate projects instead of filing one single notice of intent, because it's likely that these projects will be constructed in either in separate phases or separate contractors at potentially different times. So just to get you oriented, this is the work site. This is the Mass Pike, Oregon Road here, and Woodland Road down to the intersection with Richards Road. So that's where the overall project layout is. There is one area of bordering vegetated wetland on the northern side of the road here on Woodland Road. So we've got the 20-foot setback under local bylaw, the 100-foot buffer zone. There's no work proposed within that 20-foot. All the work is located within the 100-foot buffer zone or outside of the buffer zone. So the work consists of construction of sidewalk connection from Richards Road, crossing Woodland Road, and then running along Woodland Road up to Oregon. So they'll need to do some improvements to the driveways and, obviously construction of the layout of the sidewalk. It should be noted that we need to provide updated plans, but we've shifted in the buffer zone, we've shifted this sidewalk slightly further away from the roadway so that there'll be a grass area in between. The intent of that was to save some of these trees that are located along the edge of the road. So they'll require to install the sidewalk, and then these sections of these driveways will be saw cut and replaced to make sure that it's accessible. So that's essentially the relatively simple project. This one, again, is just the buffer zone project. I'd be happy to answer questions if the commission has any at this point.
Thank you for sharing this. I live on another part of Woodland Road, so I was able to drive by and just try to understand what's going to happen. I just want to clarify, when the sidewalk crosses over what looks like a driveway, when people are driving out of their driveway, they're going to drive over the sidewalk. Is that right?
Essentially, what they'll do, the sidewalk will be shaped so that it slopes into the driveway. So the driveways will be saw cut and the pavement will be replaced to match the elevations of the sidewalks to make sure that it's ADA accessible. But they'll be, for all intents and purposes, it'll just look like an asphalt driveway to each of these homes.
Thanks for the clarification.
Any other questions from anyone? When do you anticipate construction?
I think Greg Russell's on the call. I don't know if he's been up from my office. My expectation would be likely later this summer and into the fall. But he might be able to answer that question in much more detail than I.
I think this is actually, we're permitting this with the goal of, seeing what funds are available. But this might get pushed off till next year, but the next funding cycle. But.
Okay. And I can't talk about the Richards Road piece yet for another minute, but I have questions. So I can now. So I'm going to open up that hearing because I do want to ask questions associated with both.
Trees being removed in the buffer zone. It looks like account 1. Is that?
Yep. There's
Yeah.
one right in here that needs to be removed.
Okay.
And we are in the process of putting together a scenic road permits for the planning board.
All right, so we can talk about this a little bit in a continuous fashion. I'm going to open up 710 notice of intent, Richards Road, right away. So, in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, May 22nd, 2025, at 7:10 p.m. by a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will conduct a notice of intent for a project located within the right-of-way along Richards Road, between the intersection of Corderville Road easterly to Woodland Road. The applicant, William Cutoff, Southborough DPW. The project description is the installation of a sidewalk along the north side of Richards Road.
Does anybody have any specific questions regarding this section of the project? If not, I'll switch over to the other slide deck.
Well, I kind of do. So is the intent to have these done at the same time?
It's
That
likely.
yeah.
Greg can jump into this. Like
I would assume that would be the intent, but we had these separate, again, just in the event that they got bid as separate projects and ended up with separate contractors.
Yeah, so spot on with my concern, right? So there are two notice of intents. It's a sidewalk along One Road Woodland, and then attaching a crosswalk to Richards. From a permitting perspective, I would think it would make a lot of sense to have one OOC that would cover both of them, but since they've been filed separately, we won't be able to do that. But I would like to see them potentially constructed at the same point in time. And if you have two contractors that provide some extra oversight and complications.
And, you know, I think the intent would be to bid them and construct them at the same time. It's just strictly a matter of funding and when that funding is available.
Yeah, so do we know why they were separated to begin with?
It was, again, just strictly in the event that that we needed to break them up for funding purposes,
That one would get funded and one wouldn't?
or, you know, if there was a small amount. Both of these projects are relatively small, so, you know, if there was a small amount of money that could be used to start one, we could potentially do that. You know, there is a crosswalk at, there's an existing crosswalk at Woodland, or on the west side of Woodland. You know, so we could potentially, the intent was that we could end it there and the one on Richards there and carry on, or vice versa.
Or build one and never build the other?
I don't think that's not the intent.
But yeah, I get that, but things happen.
Oh, no, I understand.
Yeah. All right, so that's why I kind of want to talk to them about them together from my perspective. But if you want to go ahead and present the Richards piece, or if any other commission members have anything to ask with respect to the Woodland piece, I guess you can do that now, and then we can hear about the Richards piece. Okay, hearing crickets, go ahead.
Just trying to shift around here. Let me see if I can share my screen again. So again, the Richards Road is an extension from the existing section. Sidewalks again provide safe place for pedestrians. The proposed sidewalk will be on the north side of Richards Road from Corderville Road to Woodland Road. Additional crosswalks connect the sidewalks on Corderville Road and Richards Road. Sidewalk network will lead to the Mary E. Finn School.
I think you have the
Do I?
flip.
One sec. Let me try and do this again. Is this better? Everybody see this? Perfect.
Yep.
So getting to the project layout, again, the section we just talked about is Woodland Road here. So this will connect from Woodland Road down to Corderville Road with some existing sidewalks down through here. There are two perennial streams. One you can kind of see it flows down, comes through at this intersection and continues on. There's a second stream, I think just about in here, that cuts through and comes out this way and then continues on. So those are the two wetland resource areas we're dealing with here. Just to get you oriented, this is Richards Road here, Corderville Road. So this is we've got perennial stream that crosses this intersection through a culvert, kind of cross this intersection. Second stream flows through a culvert and it's piped down and discharged in this vicinity. I did subsequently, one of the comments in the peer review comments was requesting that we add some flags in this location, identify the specific area that was done. We'll provide those on some updated plans, but I can go through the process here. So we'll have erosion controls consisting of straw wattles and silt fence barrier at this intersection to protect this wetland resource area here. Project will consist of, crossings, section of sidewalk, an additional crossing across the road, and then sidewalks along the northerly side of Richards Road here. There is a small portion at this intersection that's within the town's 20-foot setback that's required to kind of get this sidewalk crossing at that stop sign there. There's also, we'll get to another slide, but there's also another section, very small area of impact within that 20-foot zone. We did request a waiver in this based upon review of the bylaw that it's allowable for a waiver if the action is in the public interest and not inconsistent with the intent and purpose of the bylaw. So again, these areas that we're proposing sidewalks, vast majority of them are kind of roadway shoulders that are either gravel or combination of gravel and grass along the sidewalks, the edge of the road. The second stream, as I described, flows through into a culvert. Culvert crosses, comes down, and then discharges over here. So again, we'll have erosion control barrier along to the edge of the roadway here. There's an existing kind of retaining wall along here too, which will also serve to protect that resource area. So the proposed work within the buffer zone will consist of, reconstruction of the portion of its existing driveway, installation of the sidewalk, crossing through. So that's all the work would be located within either riverfront area or the 100-foot buffer zone in this particular project. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Again, we don't have a file number, so we need to continue. We've got a handful of peer review comments to address, mostly consisting of comments regarding the numbering system or the flag. So we'll make those corrections and get you an updated plan before the next meeting. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to any questions the commission may have here.
So I had a question on the eastern stream. I saw that was just labeled as intermittent, but in the write-up it was described as perennial. Is it?
It's map perennial. We'll make that update to the plan sheet. I think looking at it, I suspect this may be in fact intermittent. There's just a trickle out there of flow now, but because it's mapped, it's presumed a perennial stream. So we'll update the plans and address that.
Okay.
Do you believe the mapping may be incorrect?
Well, the mapping comes from the old USGS maps. So if it's map perennial, it's presumed perennial.
Unless deemed differently, right, by evidence.
Yeah, and for a project like this, it's not worth waiting, prolonging the project, trying to document the stream being dry. There's a limited project provision that allows for roadway improvements such as this. So it's not, I don't think it's important to the project and not worth a delay and extra effort.
Okay.
Once you have all the permitting in place, how long would it take to complete the project?
Construction wise, once a contractor is selected and mobilized, probably both of these, you're talking a couple months.
Thank you.
Our consultant from Lucas Environmental, any comments here that you want to provide or add?
Maybe just briefly touch on a few things. As was noted, the culvert end and the southern portion of the screen that's showing now is closer to the road than what was estimated on the plan. And it appears that it would make the distance between the culvert ends less than 200 feet. And therefore the riverfront area would not be a straight line as indicated on these plans. It would be continuous. And that would just impact the riverfront area of the site, and the riverfront area being impacted. As we noted, there are a number of issues with the flagging. The locations were generally okay. I just mentioned it. It's makes it difficult for me and more time consuming to go searching for flag numbers that are non-existent, and trying to figure out which flags correspond to the flags on the plan. With regard to Woodland Road, I think the primary item I would like to mention is that there's an area not shown on the plans, which appears to be an isolated vegetated wetland that actually occurs in lawn area near I think it was 129 Woodland. It's mowed lawn. At the time I looked at it, it had at least a foot of water standing in it, and it was approximately 500 square feet of ponded area. It does have hydric soils. There is a constructed swale that sort of goes between that area and the catch basin, but it's kind of an odd situation where the swale is actually up gradient of the pond, and so I don't think that swale would be considered jurisdiction in any way. But it would include some additional buffer zone on that portion of the project.
Keep in mind that it's across the street from where
It
we're
is across the
working.
street, correct, yep. Like I said, it'll just be a buffer zone issue, some additional buffer zone work.
And again, it's entirely within existing maintained lawn, so I don't know if the commission, if it's something the commission even wants to regulate.
Right, the commission has, the option of how they want to consider regulation for the IDWs. And I think other than that, just generally, there were some comments on providing some information, maybe just some information on alternative analysis on why the work could not be moved outside of the 20-foot, no disturb zone. It may be obvious, but it may not be. And I think just a little narrative on that, or a little discussion on why that couldn't happen would be good for the record.
Yeah, we can provide a narrative, but if you look here, the intent is to try and, for safe pedestrian passage, it's best to do it at, a stop sign. So if we were to pull this back, it would be essentially where, be in a location where you'd have cars stopping, perhaps would create an unsafe situation.
And this is a traffic signal, so it needs to be within within the certain distance of the traffic signal. So that was kind of the main reason why it's up there, and then you start getting into the driveway as you start moving closer to it. So that was partially why we kept it there. Ideally, we could have kept it on the other side, but that the south side, that's where all the utility poles are. There's several larger trees, stone walls. It seemed after going through it and with the grading that it made the most sense. We were able to do it on the northerly side with, we'll say, lesser impacts to abutters and the overall roadway. But we can add that. We can definitely add that to the narrative.
Has a waiver been requested for the 20-foot in this application?
Yes. Notice of intent includes a waiver request, and we provide a narrative of discussion of how that's allowable. And as I indicated earlier, that it requires that it's in the public interest. It's certainly, providing safe pedestrian access, I think, is certainly in the public interest. And the other thing too, to keep in mind, which isn't required, but it's within areas adjacent to the roadway, which are kind of mowed roadway shoulders or gravel roadway shoulders. So
Mhm.
seems an appropriate waiver.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is Liz Zulik. Sorry, I know I'm not on camera tonight because I'm in the middle of bedtime, but I'm personally really excited to hear about the sidewalk project going in. I wasn't aware that this was, until I saw it on the agenda earlier this week that this was going in. And so I do think as someone who, walks and runs in this area a lot, this will be a great addition. And I do feel comfortable making, with waivers in this space, even though it will impact the buffer area just because of the public use side of the house. And I know there's a large demand in town to increase the sidewalk network that we have. So this is an area that I personally would feel comfortable in making these waivers. So I just wanted to say that out loud.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah, I just want to make sure that the waiver was requested. I've had time to go through, in excruciating detail the application. So thanks for that. Any other questions from the commission on either this section of sidewalk application or the Woodland Road? All right, let's open up to the public, see if they have any questions. Please be advised, we have to continue both. We do not have a DEP number. So we can continue to the next meeting.
Hold on one sec. I do have somebody. One sec. I have Tim Litt. You should be able to speak.
Hi, I'm rather pleased to see progress on this. I live on Woodland Road and I walk both Woodland and Richards, but I'm kind of surprised by the choice of routing for several reasons. As you noted, there is an existing sidewalk on the west side of Woodland, south of Richards, and connecting requires a pedestrian to cross. I do it every day. But it's a busy road, and you're not likely to signal that. So that sort of didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. The other thing is by going on the east side of the road, it means that you have to cross both Ted and Carolyn, which you wouldn't have to cross if the sidewalk were on the other side. And then down at 85, there is no call button on the south corner, southeast corner where one has to cross. So again, you're having people cross Richards to get to the call button, to get across the road, to cross Richards again. So I understand why there might be logistical reasons for wanting to duck permits and other things, but just from the point of view of someone who likes to walk in a straight line and not cross the road any more than he has to, this seems a little strange to me.
Yep, no, I understand your points. With regards, since we're on it with Richards Road, the signal will be modified to provide push buttons in the pedestrian phase for all crosswalks as part of this project. So that again, well, straight line is favorable. This is the best way to do it without major changes to the culvert that's at the corner at this time.
At the north corner, there's a consistent issue with flooding around where the push button is.
Okay. So we can take a look at that and see if we can address that in some way. As for Woodland, it's kind of a similar reason why as in here, the utility poles are on the other side of the road. The drainage currently, the roadway drainage currently just flows off the side of the road. If we were to put a sidewalk curb or anything on that side. It would result in having to do a new drainage system and kind of reroute the existing drainage, which we were trying to avoid. Whereas on the east side, there are existing drainage systems that we can tie into. So that's the reasoning behind that selection. And again, cost when it comes to if we have to move utility poles. If we have to move utility poles, that also impacts trees, and the overhead wires and having to trim the trees.
All right, thank you. Any other comments from the public?
I have no hands raised.
No hand raised, okay. All right, so we will continue this in the next meeting, which is June
12.
12th. Okay. So do I hear a motion to continue? I have to do these separately. The notice of intent for Woodland Road.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Zulik,
Yes.
Farrington,
Yes.
Upton,
yes.
Barbary Glevsky,
Yes.
and Pasamato.
Yeah, yes. Okay, we also need to continue the notice of intent for the 7:10 PM NOI, which is Richard Road, ROW.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Zulik,
Yes.
Farrington,
Yes.
Upton,
yes.
Barbary Glevsky,
Yes.
Pasamato.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
All right, next up is notice of intent, 45 Southfield Road, map 4, lot 27. Upgrade septic system and construction of an addition and associated site work. In addition, in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Southfield Wetlands Bylaw, the Southfield Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, May 22nd, 2025 at 7:20 PM via virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 45 Southfield Road, map 4, lot 27. The applicant, hang on a second, Sankable, I'm making a mess of this, Asandev. The project description is to upgrade the septic system, construct an addition, and other related site work. I apologize for the name.
Alright, Vito Colonna with Cornerstone Engineering, here on behalf of the applicant. So last time we continued, I think we were missing a DEP file number, and we just had to clean up some of the plans for Lucas's review comment. We did get the DEP number, it actually came in the day after, but so we got the number and there were no outstanding issues with that. And I think we made the revisions. I'll share the screen for the plan. So I think we made all the revisions needed to address Lucas's comments. There were a couple of them with the wetland delineation. We just adjusted a few flag locations, basically just deleted out a couple flags. We added some notations about removing the debris. I think there's a canoe, some tools, a wheelbarrow and stuff out in the 20-foot or maybe even into the wetlands out in the back. We just had a note to remove all that. Just noted up some stockpiling locations, which would be just in the front, right in here. And I think that was basically it for the modifications. There were a couple other just minor notes on there. We added some silt fence along this side. But other than that, there's really not much to report. A lot of it was getting the DEP file number. I don't know if you want me to go back through any of the project at all, for anyone who kind of wasn't here, or if anyone just wants a refresher, I can do that. Anyone?
See, so you have a revised plan with comments, and it was sent to we sent that to Luke's Environmental.
Yep.
Joe, do you have any comments?
Well, it looks like all of our comments were addressed and have no new comments.
So you're satisfied?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so is there any updates or comments or questions from the commission? Okay, not seeing anything. Any comments from the public or questions?
I have no hands raised.
No hands raised. Okay. So I think at this point we can close the hearing. I see no reason to continue this for any other reason. So for the NOI on 45 Sulphur Road, we hear motion to close.
So moved.
Is
Second?
there a second? Okay, we have a second. All in favor?
Zulik.
Oh, we have a third.
Yes.
Awesome.
Farrington,
Yes.
Upton,
Yes.
Barbary Glowski,
Yes.
and Pasamato.
Yes. Okay. 7:30. My paperwork straight here. All right, so 7:30, we have stormwater management permit, 48 Main Street at 53 Lot 11. In accordance with in accordance with the provisions of the Southborough Stormwater and Erosion Control Bylaw, Southborough Town Code Chapter 154, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a continued public hearing on Thursday, May 22nd, 2025 at 7:30 p.m. by a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a stormwater management permit for a project located at 48 Main Street, map 53, lot 11, for applicant Phase School. The project description is the construction of a building addition.
Okay, and we have Chris Hodney here from Niche Engineering, who is the representative for the applicant.
Hi, like Laura just said, Chris Hodney with Niche Engineering. I'm here on behalf of the Phase School. So we've continued this a few times without actually coming to a hearing. I think the first time there was kind of two things. There wouldn't have been a quorum anyways for this project, but also we still had some outstanding peer review comments. And then the prior hearing, we also still had some outstanding peer review comments. So we've been working back and forth with Fuss and O'Neill. Our goal was we closed the planning board hearing on Monday. We're getting separate comment letter there. We wanted to make sure we got both these things addressed so we could, close them both out and not have to update one. So we had addressed all those comments. We had addressed the remainder of the comments that they had. They had one last request, which was just for us to add a legend to the cut fill plan, which we sent to them on Friday. I don't see that would cause any substantial change or really any change at all to our actual design. So I'm happy to walk through the plans if you'd like. Nothing has changed since the last time that I presented them, although that was a couple months ago. So like I said, I'm happy to walk through the plan set if you'd like.
So what is outstanding at this point in time?
The only comment that is outstanding, and we had responded to this on Friday, was we had sent in the cut fill and we had honestly just forgotten to include the legend on it. So we added the legend on and sent it back to them on Friday. So that was it.
Ouch.
I know.
Okay. And we're waiting for their A-OK.
We're waiting for their A-OK. But like I said, my hope is that we could close tonight and on pending that, as a condition or something, because I do not think it will affect our design in any way.
Okay. I don't want to speak for the commission, but I think we could condition it, right? The risk is that it does impact your design and you have to come back in with an amendment. Right? So that would be the risk. But
It is. I would just say our design, there's nothing in our design really that is based on the cut fill. We're just trying to, provide the stormwater management that we need for the site. They had asked for an extra test pit at the location where the system was going to be, because if you recall, we did move it away from the building a bit. So we did a test pit dead center of our proposed system. So we know where groundwater is there. I don't see us having to change the design based on that, just because we don't have anything that is dependent on those volumes.
No, I get it. I'll just leave it at that. Other commission members' comments here?
I mean, to me, it sounds like a condition would be fine for that. And, there's a little risk, but it sounds like not too much. So I'd be fine with that.
I agree. I think that sounds reasonable.
Okay. All right. Anybody here from the public want to comment, ask questions with respect to this application?
I have no hands raised.
No hand raised. Okay. So, Lara, this is an SMP permit. Do we have the narrative available yet, or is that something you still have to put together?
The draft decision?
Yes.
Let me see. I had started like the very initial.
Okay. No pressure.
Let me see. Sorry. Let me see. Oh, hold on. So I had done the procedural history. I have our standard conditions in here. So I think really the only thing that I would need to do is add in a couple dates and just double check the numbers and add in any special conditions that you would like.
Oh, you're in great shape.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we could close this out tonight. And then we could, at the end of the meeting, we can talk about the SMP and issuing that. Okay. All right. So I guess at this point, I'm looking for a motion to close out the SMP application. All right. So it's a decision that we're looking for to be able to issue the SMP permit, which we will discuss later in the evening.
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Upton,
Yes.
and Pasmato.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And just for Claire, you mentioned issuing it later in the hearing. Do I need to stick around for that, or is that just kind of a formality at this point?
It's a formality. I mean, Lara's got the decision in good shape. We'll just add any special conditions we see fit.
Okay.
She's got prepared. And then we'll move from there.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night. See the times. Okay. 7:40 notice of intent and stormwater management permit. This is for 26 Meadow Lane. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the South Road Wetlands Bylaw, Division of the Southborough Conservation Commission, and the Erosion Control Bylaw, the Southborough Town Code, Chapter 151. The Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a continued public hearing on Thursday, May 22, 2025 at 7:40 p.m. by a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent and stormwater management permit for a project located at 26 Meadow Lane, map 56, lot 14 for the applicant William Boutre. The project description is a construction of a flexible development with 3 single-family units and 1 duplex unit. I'm struggling reading these things because somebody took my lamp out of my office. I have a little teeny lamp next to me. I can barely see this thing.
You got to go to a brighter location with your remote.
It's terrible. Well, I'll show you what it looks like.
Good evening, Peter Bemis, Engineering Design here on behalf of William Poutre for the Meadow Reservoir project. So we are, I think we're in a good position with this project at this point. But I will say that I did, we had comments back from FUS, which we've not had finalized at this point. The comments were still relative to the discharge of stormwater to the wetland replication area that we are proposing, which ultimately would flow into the on-site wetlands that, as I had mentioned to you folks when we started these proceedings, these wetlands didn't exist until they built the runway. Basically, it was the sedimentation basin for the runway. In construction, the contractor was smart enough to build such a thing back in the day. And being a good little depression, it's captured water and it has wetland plants thriving there. So we all acknowledge that it's a wetland and we're trying to protect it at the end of the day. So what Fuss and O'Neill was acknowledging is that we are still, we were trying to minimize the amount of stormwater going to Meadow Lane. So we actually took more water and put it to the back, because we were eliminating all of the runway. And this ends up penalizing us at the end of the day because there is a slight increase of stormwater going out the rear than out the front, because we were trying to minimize how much went to Meadow Lane with the existing drainage system there. I did we tried to get comments back from FUS. We don't have them. So I'm sure their position hasn't changed. So I'm not going to speak for them or suggest that they would say anything otherwise. That if we are going to comply with their original comment, what we would do is take the infiltration area that was located on the west end at our first single-family home on the left, and instead of it going out the back, it would go out the front. There's about a third of an acre in that zone that we were taking out back, and because that land area is shifting, that's what caused the stormwater differential. And if we bring it out to Meadow, we're still well below the amount of stormwater being discharged to that area. Essentially, they both commingle when they get to the reservoir, but the technical issue here is that we're taking stormwater to an on-site resource area. So other than that, I'd say we had a complete set of plans and documents because we had addressed everything else that FUS had asked for, with the exception of that item. The planning board meeting that we just had, we got kind of down and deep on the open space and how we referred to things. So we have open space that is we call naturalized. They didn't care for that term, so we're just calling areas that are natural, i.e. trees. All wetland areas and any treed areas are going to be left that way. We're not ever proposing to change that. What we would like to do, though, is have annual mowing of the meadow so that we can keep it a meadow. There's a lot of woods out in this section of town, and to have an open meadow like this will allow a lot of diversification of the animal habitat that's there. So they were supportive of that idea. And then we had some areas that we wanted to have in the open space that would be, I would call them manicured, but it's really not the right term, because I would say the mowing would probably be more like every other week or every third week, depending on how fast the grass is growing. And it's really for the area over the septic system. We want to be able to make sure that that doesn't get too unwieldy. And it would also be for access to the open space. And it would also be for one of our immediate abutters. He has a view shed here, and he's interested in protecting his dog, who apparently there's been some coyotes that he's had some problems with. And
What kind of shed? What did you say?
No, not a shed. Coyotes with one of our neighbors.
Yeah, you
So-
said, didn't you say some kind of shed or something?
No, no,
Okay,
the mowing. So mowing. Oh, so we gave him a view. Oh, I did say view. Yeah, we gave him a view shed easement. So he could see. So he could see out the back for a visual. We said we wouldn't build anything behind his property.
I've never heard that term before.
Oh, pardon me.
So
Yeah, like a
that's fine.
watershed.
I
It's a
learn
view
something new every
shed.
day. That's
Well,
great.
I don't know, maybe I'm misusing the term, but
I have
used
no
it
idea.
before, and nobody's ever corrected me.
I'm not going to correct you.
Okay, well, so yeah, so that's kind of where we stand with this. I I know my client would certainly like to see you close this and vote it. If you're inclined to do that, great. If I know Lucas had some comments. Some of them we had asked to be conditions, and I'll let Joe make his presentation on the points. If we were to continue it, obviously we can address his comments. If we don't and you condition it, then we would still do what Joe's asking for. Yeah, I think that's it. If you'd like, I can put drawings up on the screen, but I didn't because I just figured I'd talk about this in broad terms. If we were to revise the plans, so as I was saying to you, what we submitted already, the stormwater for the first house on the left, the infiltrative drainage system that's there was to go out. Currently, what you have before you goes out the back. And what Fuss and O'Neill was taking issue with is the increase in the volume going out to the back. As I said, when they both commingle, when they get to the reservoir, we're still well below because we're eliminating all this asphalt. But it becomes an area calculation that we were trying to take some of the water away from Meadow Lane to help support the infrastructure that's there more than we already were. We were cutting the flow down by well over half that was going in that direction. So instead, it probably be cut by, 2/3 instead of half. For example, so that there'd be like an extra third that goes to it now. But I don't see that being a problem. I mean, we're still making a vast improvement over the existing condition. So I'll let you folks ask questions, and thank you for opportunity to present this.
All right, thanks, Peter. Joe, do you have any comments?
Just a couple.
Okay.
I think the vast majority of our comments have been addressed. I just wanted to point out the wetland line that was missing previously that was previously delineated and approved along the northeast portion of the property has been added. I just want to note that the western end of that delineation, it looks like is actually an estimated line. I know that the last previously approved flag, it was flagged C23, which is on the plan. And I know that when I was out in the field that the wetland generally went in the wetland boundary generally went in the northwest direction. And that is what has been added to the plan. I just need to point out that, that is not, as far as I know, a confirmed line and estimated. So the buffer zone may not be 100% correct in that location, but it's probably pretty close. Couple of minor items. I know there was a request for a waiver from providing a plan in the colors required under the bylaw regulations. So that's, I think, still open for the commission to discuss. Note that we are not commenting on any of the stormwater review being done by Preston and Neil. Regarding the proposed wetland replication area, which is being proposed at this point as a rain garden. I had previously commented that we would recommend that the area meet the design standards of the DEP wetland replication guidelines. And the applicant has agreed that they could do that, you know, with their special condition. Typically, in a design for a wetland replication area, I think the commission would want to have that in hand prior to issuing an order of conditions, because that should be peer reviewed to make sure that it's going to work, the DESNIC guidelines, you know, that the hydrology is properly designed for a self-sustaining wetland. In this case, I think there was some sentiment at the last meeting that the commission might be okay with a rain garden, given that the area being filled is an isolated vegetated wetland, and it's relatively low quality wetland. If that's the case, I don't think it's critical that the design meet the DEP guidelines for a wetland, because it would be a different design standard. Again, there's some invasive species down in that area of the proposed replication, and we had recommended an invasive species management plan. The applicant is asking for that to be a condition, and the county commission certainly can discuss that. Let's see. I think that's about it. Check. Yeah, I think that pretty much takes care of my comments.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments from the commission members with respect to all the 26 Meadow NOI and SMP? And you know where we're currently at with design.
I guess I had a question. The wetland replication area, I got the impression that it was going to be sustained from that stormwater runoff, more than a self-sustained wetland back there. So how would that change if that infiltration basin went out to Meadow Lane?
No, good point. We're still going to have two roof areas. The two duplexes in the rear will still continue to go in that direction, and I'm of the mindset that Joe probably is too. The wetland that Grady flagged that was located to the east is down at the bottom of that slope, and my belief is that if we encourage Mother to do her thing, there's going to be one continuous wetland down along the whole bottom slope. Because my belief is that the wetland area that has formed coming off of the Valley Road area basically flows down, going to flow down that whole line. That was one of the things actually Zach and I had looked at was, you know, what if we were to keep extending this, or at least promoting its development. So I think over time you're going to see one continuous wetland down along that whole bottom, anyways. This is kind of at that crux moment, because if you feel as though what Joe said, then the issue that Fuss was raising is no longer an issue, and we as designers preferred the stormwater to go out the back. I was doing my best to help Southborough DPW help itself. It actually didn't even have permission for stormwater to leave Meadow Lane and go through the private property that used to be owned by the folks that Mr. Poutre purchased it from here, the Calanders. So we did provide them with an easement, so they have the right of discharge through the 16 Meadow Lane property. But you know, being an older street, having infrastructure that was never designed for NOAA 14 stormwater standards, we just thought it was prudent to do this. But technically, under the regulations, we didn't want to create a scenario where the commission was authorizing stormwater to go to a natural wetland area. Because we're not supposed to do that. And I know you folks have actually had policies on that in the past where you've said no, rightfully so. So with the last thing we wanted to do is put you folks in that situation. So we have redesigned it. We're prepared to submit that redesign if we had to. But if I had a preference, my preference would be for the stormwater to go out the back. So I think if we, and is Ben in attendance tonight?
He's
And-
not. He was not able to make it.
Because he's the guy who knows this stuff just as well as me.
Exactly. And I'm sitting here struggling because he had a family issue came up, and
Okay.
he tried to get on Zoom at 5:30 in preparation, and he's at a place where it did not work.
Ah, okay.
Right. So, I'm struggling because I know we want to move this application forward.
Hmm.
Given his expertise, I want to hear his opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't want to set a precedent here
No,
moving forward that we can't live with.
right. Could we do this? Because I think this would be the best outcome for tonight, if I could, is that all else being equal, because I think what Joe's raising is a really good point. That was the value, that the wetland that formed along the runway that we're displacing, it was there because of poor drainage. The runway shouldn't have been there. As you know, that's been our premise from the start of this. There was never any permitting. There was never any review. All of a sudden, an acre of pavement formed off of Meadow Lane, and an airplane used to take off and land. The whole premise of this project has been to, put some things back. We started with this not taking advantage of any of that asphalt being part of the project limits. It's there, we were moving it, don't get me wrong, but we didn't take credit for it. So I would like to be able to continue to do all of the good things that we've done with this project and put the stormwater out the back like we had planned on. It will help Meadow Lane. It will help this wetland we're trying to create. It will probably allow even more wetland to form in the back. But we'd have to recognize the fact that this wetland that's already there was a stormwater basin that was constructed for the runway. And we'd have to recognize that what we're creating is a rain garden that's, I will tell you, at the end of the day, and Joe, and I don't mind trying to meet the DEP standards as best we can, but I don't want to have to meet them because we say it's a wetland. It will make it a lot easier for us and you folks at the end of the day too. If we could accomplish that tonight, that would be huge. Because then I think I could go back to Fuss and say that we met with the commission, this is what our findings are about the wetland. And we could fix all of the things that the planning board asked us to fix. But more importantly, we could leave the stormwater the way we already designed it. Thank you.
Can I interject?
Bill, 1 second. I just want to hear if Joe has a response.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the more water you're putting back there, the more likely you're gonna have success for that. If it's designed as a rain garden and there's sufficient water going back there, it's going to develop as a self-sustaining wetland. And if there's not enough water to keep maintaining as a self-sustaining wetland, well, then you still have a functional rain garden. So I think the question is the commission okay with a rain garden as opposed to a wetland application area? And I think there's leeway, given that it's an IBW that is being removed and replaced, as far as what the commission would like to see back there. I think probably good success, good chance for success for a rain garden. I don't know, I think there need to be more information regarding potential success for an IBW or a wetland replication area. But,
All right. Thanks, Joe.
Yep, that helps.
That's helpful.
And
Mr.
also
Boucher?
recall, I was going to say, recall the fact that what we're trying to do is diversify that area as well. So a lot of the shrubs that we were proposing were berry plants, so helpful for birds and other animals, versus just, I think what we'd said, it was just hydrophytic grasses that had formed along the edge of the runway. So that's been the goal of this, is to create that space and have it of higher value at the end of the day.
Mr. Poutre?
Yes. So first of all, thank you for your comments, and Joe, thank you for your comments. And in response to Mr. Farrington's comments, and kind of recapping our last meeting, we had spoken about the way to make that rain garden sustainable, so it could eventually turn into, a better habitat, was through the use of the treated water that was going to go back there. And the fear would be, and I think we discussed this last time, that without that, I'm not so sure that we'll get it to sustain what our goal is. So if it were characterized as a rain garden, as we discussed last time, and Joe talked about, and we talked about in our meeting, I think that that would enable us to accomplish everything that we're looking to accomplish.
Thank you. So, so Peter, I'm hearing that there are some changes to the plans that are in flight. And in order for us to be able to, stamp, issue, rely on our NOI and SMP, we need to have the latest and greatest stamp plans.
Great.
So what I'm going to suggest is probably not super popular, but I'm going to throw it out there anyways, is that we continue based on your updated plans, and that hopefully we can, have Ben here for the next meeting where we can close everything out, and vote on the NOI and SMP, and be able to, get that lined up for these applications, to allow you to move forward. I get a little twitchy when we close things out. We have all these special conditions all the time. I'd rather try to be as clean as we can be, especially where we may have some consultants that may have some issues here or there. I want to make sure that our I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and we have good reasons for maybe not taking their advice 100%. So, I'm just one member of the commission, so that's just what I'm suggesting. I'm open to other members of the commissions providing their opinions here as well.
Well,
Mark,
I'm good with it too. So,
I just
sorry.
want to say that I concur with Mark. I think that if we can just give it a couple more weeks, come back and have the opportunity to have your information updated as it should be, and have Ben's input, I think that would give everybody a higher degree of comfort. This is an unusual project in town, as you know. A lot of people are looking at it, and so we want to make sure that it's clear what the plan is. And as Mark said, I think that when you add a lot of conditions, when we vote on something, it makes people a little bit uncomfortable. So I think if we can wait, that would be my recommendation.
I'm good with that. So I was prepared. I had talked to Laura earlier in the day about an extension. So Laura would ask you just to send that so I can sign it tomorrow.
Yep. You got it.
And we'll meet you again in 3 weeks.
So just to be clear to everybody that's on the call, the extension is to extend the SMP extension period, so that we can continue this hearing and act on it in the future.
In the NOI. Yeah.
In the NOI, yes. Yeah.
But again, just to go back on the wetland versus rain gardens. I think I'm hearing a consensus that because again, I think Joe's supportive. He said this, the one consultant that's here, because I know we don't have Fuss O'Neill here, but they're not typically the entity that would help you with that decision making. They're just looking at it from the pure DEP stormwater management guidelines perspective. So I would prefer personally, as a designer of this project, prefer to send that stormwater out to the back. I think it's going to have far more overall value than to have it going out the front, which is kind of the directive we have now from an engineering perspective. If we were discharging it to, again, a wetland, a natural wetland, we have an isolated detention basin, settling basin, whatever you want to call that area, because it doesn't really have an outlet. And you have the space we're creating to replicate what's being lost along the runway, which also doesn't have an outlet. It's just an isolated depression that basically filled up with water and allowed some hydrophytic grasses to form.
Peter, can I ask a quick question? So I think what we need is the direction of which plan we are going to pursue. Because if we're moving,
Yes.
if we're going to call that a rain garden and we're moving to the back, then we're not changing the plan. The plan that you have is the plan that we're submitting.
But Bill, there's other changes the planning board wanted, as I mentioned in the beginning, and so there are some edits that the plan is going to have. So no matter what, we're going to do that.
But we still want to have an understanding of whether we're calling this a rain garden.
Absolutely. That's the one question I need to have answered, if I
Well,
can.
yeah, so the desirability is to have a replication area, right? And in order to get that, you need to flow the water out the back.
Correct.
Fussell O'Neill, our stormwater consultant, is saying, no, the water's got out the front. It goes out the front, we end up with maybe a rain garden. Right?
Right.
So I would just articulate that option
Okay. Very good.
and let
Mark.
the
Thank you.
commission tell you what we prefer,
Okay.
right? We can take our consultant and say, you know what? We want a wetland and it's going to require that stormwater to feed it.
Mhm.
And that has to go out the back. Or we can say, you know what? We're okay with a rain garden and we're going to, do what our consultant says and put it out the front.
All right.
But if you give us the option, right, we'll then pick one.
Okay. Fair enough. We'll see you in 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
I mean, to me, that seems to be the thing to do.
Yep.
I'm only
All
one
right.
member, but that kind of falls within I'm not a wetlands engineer. I'm a computer engineer. I deal
Yep.
with transistors and flip-flops
Okay.
in a day. But anyways,
But that's good. No, and at this point, we've designed them both, so we do know what they both look like. So we can do that. I'm good with that scenario. I know how I would illustrate it. So, all right. Thank you for your time this evening. And again, Laura, I'll take care of that tomorrow. Okay.
all right, we need to
Continue,
have a
please.
vote to
Yes.
continue.
Yep.
I need a motion for both the NOI and SMP.
Moved.
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Gulick,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Upton,
Yes.
Barbary Glowski,
Yes.
Pasmato.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, good night.
Good night. All right, that's the end of our public hearings. We have a request for certificate of compliance for 66 Breakneck Hill Road. So they have a closing scheduled for 5/27.
They do. So the property is being sold in the process of going about the paperwork for selling. They realized that the order of conditions for the replacement of the septic was still open. So this was something that they were just hoping to close out. The septic was, I think the order of conditions is from like 1998. So the septic has been installed since 2000. It has been there. Ben did do a site visit. He reviewed all the documents and he found no issues, and he recommended that the commission issue the order or the certificate. Sorry.
Okay. Given his preview and recommendation, I'm looking for a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for 66 Breakneck Hill Road.
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Gulick,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Upton,
Yes.
Barbary Glowski,
Yes.
and Pasmato.
Yes.
Okay, and Gemma, I see that you're here. I'll have that for you by tomorrow. So, all right.
Okay. And next I have 259 Corderville Road, discussion of fill on the property. I believe we invited the homeowner here.
Yes, we did. So let me just bring them over. Okay, and they are just rejoining.
Hi, my name is Nyang. I'm the resident at 259 Corderville Road.
Welcome.
Thank you. So then I was the first time talking to you, and I go. So I don't know if you want a little explanations of what I'm doing, what I'm trying to achieve, or you have questions. How would you like to?
Let me start by saying that you live on a very viewable public highway. As people drive by, and I can tell you that a couple members from the Marlboro Conservation Commission that dine at Carboni's restaurant and know that I'm on the commission asked me personally what was going on there. Because they could see a lot of fill going in, and you know, they believe that there is, you know, wetlands in the back, and wanted to know if there was any violation that was going on, if you had a permit, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So you know, the commission reached out to try to understand, sir, what you're doing, and whether or not there is any sort of you know, violation to the Wetlands Protection Act, which is if you are doing any sort of work within 100 feet of what is designated as a wetland, requires a permit, right? So if there's a wetland back there and you're within 100 feet of it, it requires a permit. If there's intermittent stream, requires a permit. If there's a perennial stream that doesn't dry up, that's a whole nother set of things that we have to go through. So that's why the commission reached out to try to understand what you're doing in your proximity to the wetlands, which we know are in the back part of your I don't want to say it's on your lot, but in the back part of that property.
I see. So perhaps I can explain what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to achieve, and maybe leave that after that explanations, and you can have better understandings and have questions on what's next. Is that sounds
That'll be good, but do you know where the wetlands boundary is in the back of your property?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So maybe maybe it's easier to go through a slides that I have. Is that would that be sufficient? I'm trying to piece together what I'm trying to do, and maybe I can share a screen of what I plan to achieve.
If you have some diagrams or something, it would be helpful.
Yep. So maybe it will. I'm thinking maybe I give you introductions of where I'm from. I'm actually from Vietnam, and I live in a field of lots of paddy field, and I want to replicate something close to that. I want to have some invertebrates. I want to have some fish, ponds. So that's ultimately what I'm trying to do. on this area of the house. So this is what I'm drawing. This is the road that we the Cotterville Road, and this is where the water flow when there's a lot of rain. And what I'm trying to do is to first thinking of having a kind of like an artificial pond, basically trying to put the liners and trying to get a pond on this area. But the problem is it's very close to the road, and it's a lot of like pollution runoff from the road. And sometimes I noticed when I try to put fertilizer, it just run off and go to this area. So I don't think that's a good idea to put a little pond in that area. So what I've been trying to do is I want to have a permaculture garden. So basically, it captures a lot more rainwater, and I don't have to water so intensely every summer and during the drought. So what I'm thinking is to have slopes that gently go about 2% grade and going approximately in this directions, and trying to build the berms that actually let the water to, sorry, maybe I do I bother you? Sorry, I have to.
Do you bother me?
Yeah, but
I'm not following.
Everyone actually, whether I'm stray off from points or
No, I mean, I'm getting an idea as to what you're trying to do, which is you're trying to build some features in your backyard that resembles something from your homeland. And jump in if I'm wrong. Resembles something from your homeland, which was Vietnam, which had, grasses, some water. I think you mentioned some fish life.
aquatic life.
Aquatic life, yeah, and having some sort of man-made pondage of water that you're trying to create. If I say something wrong, jump right in.
That's correct.
That's correct. Yeah. So I'm going to ask our consultant from Lucas Environmental to chime in, but because I've been on the Conservation Commission for quite some time, and this is the first time that I've come across something where somebody is trying to impound water to build some sort of features that don't presently exist on their property, to have some kind of aquatic life and something like that. And I need to refer to him as to whether or not, taking runoff that would normally be going to wetland areas for them to thrive and survive, and potentially building something like this that would starve that. Joe, can you jump in and provide a couple of comments?
Yeah, well, it's hard to really discuss without having more detail on what the existing conditions are there. I mean, if there is surface water flow that's going down through that area now, if that's retained, is it retained temporarily and still going to continue discharging, at some point, once those areas are filled. Just be a temporary interruption while they're being filled. Is it going to be still connected to the groundwater, so you can have groundwater infiltration and still maintain that? I think
So yeah,
too
maybe a
many
little
questions,
background on
too
the
many questions
groundwater.
right now, to really be able to answer that with any kind of certainty.
So from what I understand, when basically I dig to the ground maybe about 1 meter, and check to see where the water goes. So usually water goes to this little area, and it drains maybe within 12 hours to the ground, and ultimately after 24 hours it go to the nearest porous structure, that is my basement and also my neighbor basement, and continue to go toward the back of the property. So that's the if you're asking about the hydrology, where the water goes.
Yeah, and I guess I would also, we want to know where the actual wetland boundary is relative to that. I don't know if that has been delineated in the past, if there's a wetland existing or previous wetland delineation on the property, to have a good idea of that. Just looking at the topo, it's possible that it does come up a fair bit from that stream, but we really need to either have a delineation done or go out and take a look at it just to see where the edge of the wetland is relative to anything that might be proposed. And if existing surface water flow is maintaining any of that wetland, or if it's groundwater, don't know.
I see. So your concern is if I start building the features that capture the water, it will affect whatever the wetlands or water features behind in the back of the property.
Well, that's one potentially. The project that you're wanting to create or build is to impound water for some period of time to allow aquatic creatures to be able to survive, right, and live. Probably meaning they have to have water all the time. There's a wetland down in the back that we have to, as a conservation commission, we have responsibility to make sure that wetland and anything around it development wise does not impact it. And if there's any impact to it, that it's mitigated. Right. So if you're going to impact it, we have to make sure that you mitigate that impact. Right. So understand it's your property, you pay taxes on it, but there are limitations with respect to, laws and things that we have to uphold and have responsibility for, to make sure that we have responsibility to the little critters that live in that wetland in your backyard. Right. So, there are offsets from that wetland that we have to make sure that are maintained, mitigated, taken care of. Whether it's if it's just a wetland, it's 100 feet buffer zone. We have a bylaw that says that within 20 feet of that, there are more restrictions. If it's a intermittent stream, there are more restrictions. If it's perennial stream, there's even additional restrictions, right? So all that comes in. And I know that from Richards Road and Route 85, there's a stream that runs through. It actually has a historical bridge over it that runs down through and behind your property. I don't know how far it is behind your property based on where you live. That continues down and eventually goes into the Sudbury Reservoir. I mean, Sudbury River. Right. So the reason why you were reached out to find out, hey, what's going on, was with respect to that wetland that's in the back, and your work and your impact to that.
I see. So I understand there's a 200 feet on the buffer zone of the brooks that you mentioned.
That's for a stream, yes.
But yes, the brook is the back of the property.
Right,
And
and then, you know, there's a wetland there's a stream, there's a riverbank, and there's a wetland
yes,
that would be
And-
associated with that stream that goes out some distance, that is usually identified through soil testing. And that's why we have a consultant like Lucas Environmental that goes out there and takes soil samples to determine whether or not the soils contain wetland modeling. And then that determines where the wetland line is. And then from there, it's 100 feet that is considered the buffer zone. Right, so I see your drawings there and so forth, but that does not tell us what the buffer zone is. Right, you have 261 feet on that purple line. I assume that's from the dotted red dots.
yes,
Yeah, and between the dotted red dots and that 261 feet, there's a riverbank and there's going to be a buffer zone.
that's correct.
Right, so
Okay.
usually we look at getting engineering plans when somebody's going to do a project in their backyard or front yard or side yards that show us where their project is in relationship to the things that we have jurisdictional responsibility for. Right, and ignoring that is not a good thing, because that results in enforcement orders and fines and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right, so looking at, you know, what you're showing me here, it's hard for me to tell where there would be any buffer zone, as Joe Orzell mentioned, Lucas Environmental.
Is there a power outage happening?
Jen, I can hear you.
Okay. Just checking. Our power here just flickered, and so I'm wondering if
Yeah, I can hear you, but it looks like things went
Yeah.
silent there for a while.
I think we just lost Mark too.
Yeah, we did.
Oh boy. Hmm. Yikes, that's not good. Hmm. Oh boy. I don't know what to do.
I know.
Um, oh, we lost Kevin too, didn't
Maybe
we?
they can call in if they can't get back online. I don't know.
Yeah, because right now we don't have a quorum.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Oh no. All right. Maybe let's give them a little bit and see if they can get back on. Gosh, is the weather that bad in Southborough?
it's been raining all day, but I didn't think it was windy or anything, but all
Yeah.
the lights flashed and everything's
It was a
like,
little windy.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh no.
Oh,
Oh, oh no. Now we lost Melinda. Oh boy. Oh, here comes Mark. Hopefully.
Is that okay if I go and get some water?
Yeah. Never a dull moment, huh?
like something.
Yeah.
There's Kevin.
Oh,
Hello?
hi,
Hello.
Mark.
I lost power.
Yeah. We lost a bunch of commission members, so we're just waiting for everybody to try to get back on.
All right, so I'm on my phone. I don't know if
Okay.
it's back on the internet or not. Let me see. It looks like it's back.
Okay.
That was awesome.
Okay.
Thank goodness for redundancy. You have a phone, huh?
Yeah. My goodness. Okay. So for a little while there, we did not have a quorum, but we are back up to a quorum. But we have lost Melinda, so I don't know if she's able to log back on.
All right. Let me see if I can get back in the meeting.
Yeah.
My computer's doing all kinds of stuff. It should hang on here.
Oop,
Am I back?
You're back.
We're back.
All right. Technology.
Okay. So we're still down Melinda, but you have a quorum if you want to keep going.
All right. So I think where I left it was we were talking about understanding where this project was with respect to the jurisdictional items that we have responsibility for.
And yeah,
And-
I want to add that I don't think there's any surface water that's feeding into the wetlands or the area in the back for the forest.
Well, so there is for sure, because water goes downhill. So what we need you to do is based on our observation and where the brook and the stream is in the back, is what we need you to do as a commission is to provide some details to show that your project is not impacting the wetlands in your area. Right? That's what needs to be done. And one way to do that, and I know you didn't want to have anybody come on your property, but one way to do that would be inexpensive for you is to have our consultant come on your property and look. Right, and which would require your permission to do that. because he could come on your property, see what you're doing, see how far you are away from the wetlands, and then make a recommendation to the Conservation Commission to say, hey, you know, all's good out here. You know, the work that's being done is of no concern or interest to us, and we all move on. But in absence of that, the burden is on the homeowner, you, to convince us that there's nothing going on that's impacting the wetland.
To be honest, I would rather go with the hard roads just because it feel uncomfortable for someone to visit the property.
It's up to you. I mean, you know, our consultant would cost you no money to come on your property to make a determination as to whether or not there's any potential impacts, versus you will probably have to spend some money. I don't know, but you probably have to spend some money to be able to provide us evidence that you know, the plan that you are proposing is going to have no impact. You know, you're going to have surveys done, wetland delineation done, you know, all that sort of stuff. It's completely up to you. It's your property. But that's why we kind of called you in to you know, have a discussion as to what you were trying to do. Were you trying to just make a lawn? Were you just trying to level your property? How far back were you going? And you know, as you're showing here, you've got some you know, interesting plans for your property, which I get. It's your property, and you know, I understand that. Let me just ask other commission members what their thoughts are before I lose power again.
I lost power too. I apologize. Thank you so much for coming in to explain your goals. I think it's actually a really interesting sounding project. I think for us, we just do need to understand how what you're trying to accomplish could affect and would likely affect, if we don't have a better understanding of it. We are assuming that there would be an impact on a really desirable and important wetland behind your property, that it's our responsibility as conservation commissioners to safeguard. You know, there are laws that we have to uphold as conservation commissioners, and that's why we asked you to come and talk with us. This may be a lot that you didn't know. So you may need time to think about what you feel comfortable with. But generally, when we see plans like this, they usually are supported by independent sort of engineering people who have professional experience, helping us understand where the boundaries are and what the plans are, so that if there is any concern about impact on the wetland, we know what the plan is to make sure that everything's going to be fine. So I know you've put a lot of work into these slides. It's clear, and also in the plans for your property, but it is missing a critical connection to what we would need to understand as commissioners. And that's why we're not feeling comfortable with what you've shared in light of our responsibilities.
So, as I understand, is so the only way to resolve this is to have your consultant to go and take a look at the property and determine whether it has an impact on the area that's behind the property.
That's not the only way, right? The other way would be for the applicant, you, to have some sort of professional, you use the term engineering, come in with some, you know, design drawings to indicate what you're trying to do, right? And we would either decide that based on those design drawings, whether it was a negative impact the wetlands, which falls within what we call a request for determination of applicability, RDA, which we would then determine like, no, it's all set. There's no impact. They can go ahead and do whatever they want. They're planning on doing, or the RDA triggers what we call a notice of intent, which then drives a need for a permit. And we're not a preventing board. We are a permitting board, as long as the design requirements and mitigation requirements of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw are met. Right, so that's what our jobs are. And if you are in doubt as to whether or not you're impacting, we can have our consultant go out and take a look. That's cost you nothing. If you desire not to do that because you don't want to have anybody come on your property, then in order to move this forward based on the oversight that we've seen by folks driving by and worried and concerned about impacts of the wetland, we have to pursue this to a level where we're convinced that there's nothing detrimental going on.
And to understand it better too is what specifically the concerns that you think would affect the area behind the back of the property, wetland, that you think the bill that I'm trying to get and to have.
Well, so I'm just going to throw some stuff out there, kind of spitballing, right? So you bring fill in, it rains, the wetlands is downstream from that. Is any of that fill making its way down there in terms of erosion? It's unclear to us from the street view. Is that fill that you're bringing in there, clean fill? Is it got any contamination in it? We don't know. Is it changing the topography of all that, so in such that it's causing the drainage to go to the different areas where it didn't used to go? All those kinds of things that could impact the viability of the wetland in the stream that's back there, right? So just throwing some of those things out. I don't know if any of that is the case here. We can't tell. But once you start to change the topography and do those kinds of things, that's why we're concerned with anything that is within 100 feet of what that wetland is, the bordering vegetative wetland, the 100 feet. That's what we're concerned with. And we don't know where that is here. The closest thing I can see on your map here is, I think, 261 feet. I don't know. That's from where the red dotted lines are, based on your drawing. But is there something? Is that where the bordering vegetative is the IBW at 75 feet from that? I don't know. I can't tell.
Oh, that's the elevation.
Oh, that's the elevation mark. That's not the feet from the dots.
No.
Oh, okay.
So the 200 feet from the dot is the red one.
Yeah. So that's the.
So the fill I put is within from the brook is 250 feet.
Right from the brook, but again, there's bank and buffer zone. So
when you say, okay,
I mean, I think there's only two ways to go forward here, sir, which is you allow our consultant to come on site and have a look, or you provide us with what we call a request for determination of applicability, which means you're asking us if there's any impact to the wetlands that are on the back of your property based on the work that you're doing. Right? Those are the two paths. Anybody from the board disagree or think of a different path?
Mark, I think you said it well. And again, this is probably new to you, this information. And it may be helpful to go back and look at recordings of some of our prior meetings and see the kinds of documents that are shared when people are looking to do big projects like this one, where the renderings look quite different from what you've shared, and you can really tell where the wetlands are versus the features of the property. And that's why having somebody like Joe come out, understanding your goals, but trying to figure out how your goals and what you're trying to accomplish on this plot of land could affect a wetland that this community and this committee is required to protect. So it is up to you how you want to proceed and whether you want to proceed. But I do think that we have a resource available that could help you figure out next steps. If you aren't comfortable with that resource, then you'd probably need to pay money to have somebody else help you develop a plan that you could bring back to this committee.
I see. Can I give some thoughts on this and then?
Well,
come back
absolutely,
to-
absolutely. And, you know, the ball's in your court. We're not trying to provide any hardship to you. It's just that this, you know, committee organization that we belong to has a responsibility to protect the wet resources in our community. And you know, where your property lies, there are some in the rear of your property. And we need to make sure that, you know, any project that you do, if you were building a swimming pool in your backyard, we would have the same conversation, right? If you were putting a garage on your house, we'd have the same conversation, right? That's what this board is, you know, put in place to do. It's driven by, you know, the state, by the Wetlands Protection Act, right? So we're a volunteer board. None of us get paid one penny. Yeah, you know, this is what we have the responsibility to uphold. So go off and you know, I suggest you take the information we provided to you. You can reach out to Lara with any questions, and you know, the decision is yours to move forward. But I think that at this point, we've probably provided all the information that we can provide you for this evening at this point.
Yeah,
And I do want to thank
the
you for coming in
options
and sharing
yeah.
your plans, your ideas.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I think I get the questions. Can I also ask one last question? That is,
sure.
I was just wondering what triggers. So the fill was the trigger of your concern on the impacts of the wetland. Is that correct?
So there was the fill, looking at your property on the left side, there was the multiple mounds of dirt fill that was being brought in. And also the residual tired dirt tracks on Route 85 as the vehicles left. Right, so when we have projects in town that have fill coming in and vehicles leave, we have responsibility to make sure that the asphalt is not left in a state which that when it rains, that dirt finds its way into a drainage grate, right? So that and as I mentioned, I had people that I ran into and said, hey, what's going on at this property? You know, there's wetlands in the back. Have they been in front of you? And, you know, that sparked some interest as to reach out to you to find out what was going on.
You said Pico and Grand?
I'm sorry?
You said somebody in town that was upset and guess
No, I
it's
did not
okay.
say somebody in town that was upset. I just said that there were people that noticed that something was going on and inquired. And, you know, I took a ride by and I saw it and I said, oh, I wonder what's going on myself. And, you know, reached out to, you know, our administrative staff to reach out to you to find out what was going on.
And for perspective, this happens throughout the year, that people bring issues to this committee's attention if they see something they don't understand. And they wonder if all the paperwork is in place and if the situation has been vetted by this group. So it's not just your property. It happens to other properties too, where there is a concern that there may be an impact on local wetlands. So I don't want you to think it's just you. This happens to other properties too, if there is activity that raises concerns.
That's a good point, Melinda. Thank you. It isn't that, you know, this property's been singled out or anything. It happens consistently across the town.
I see. And so
we even get notified by, you know, somebody that might be making a closing on a home, and they notice that the landscapers have been throwing their lawn clippings in the buffer zone. Right, so we get that notification often.
Oh, from my properties.
Yeah, so there may be, you know, a sale of a home, and you know they may have an outstanding order of conditions, and you know we go out there and take a look, and oh, look at, there's been grass clippings by the landscaper thrown in the wetlands for, you know, a number of years, right? That needs to be addressed. That's a frequent occurrence.
Yeah, I was going to add, a lot of times is when property turns over and new owners come in and are making changes who are not aware of the local bylaws. We tend to see a lot of that. And a lot of it is people driving by and having curiosity and saying, hey, what's going on here? And they know different people in town are involved, or they contact directly the conservation agent to inquire what's happening. So it is a fairly common occurrence in town. Especially this property is very visible, I think, from the street versus others that are less visible.
Exactly. Listen, it's not buried in the neighborhood. It's right there on 85.
Yeah.
A lot of traffic going by. So
I see.
It's an
So
interesting project.
even moving forward, so it means that it's fairly restrictive, even for the purpose of, say, in the future, if I want to maintain and put fertilizer, it's also, I have to be careful and have to go through the conservation.
no, it's not that restrictive, right? It's so I think based on the number of your questions and things, it would really be worth your while to understand where the wetlands are in your backyard, where that buffer zone is, so that you have a distinct barrier or understanding as to where you have complete freedom and where you need to involve us. Now, that will cost money, and I don't want to tell you to spend any money. And maybe having Joe go out and take a look and say, hey, you know, your wetland is so far away, you don't need to worry about it. Might be, you know, a very inexpensive way for you to be able to understand where your level of any restrictions are. But you know, people that have wetlands in their backyards or side yards or wherever they are, fertilize their lawn. They mow their lawn, right? We're not taking any of that ability to do that away. That is completely within the realm of their I'm trying to say their rights, right? And in order to do what you're doing with your yard based on what you're proposing in your slides, might be 100% okay as well. We just don't understand where that is with respect to that stream in the back and the wetland boundary. Right. So you know, I think you have two choices here, as Melinda helped point out, and Liz did it well, which is, you know, you can have our consultant come out on your property, take a look, walk it with you, and make a rough determination as to where the line is. as to where you can go and can't go, or you can hire an engineer to come in and do a wetlands profile, which will cost some money. Right, so I think, you know, and then, you know, ability to fertilize and grow grass and plant bushes and trees, that's well within your rights. So, all right, we do need to move on. We have a lot more on our agenda tonight.
Yeah, that's
so,
all right. Yeah.
So thank you for coming in. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Have a good night.
Good night.
Okay, moving on is 25 and 27 Parkville Road, potential violation.
Yeah, just really quick, because I know we have Al and Kristen here for the wastewater treatment. Do you want to do that first, and then we can talk about Parkerville after, or it's up to you?
Is anybody here for Parkville?
No,
Okay,
this
yeah.
was just a discussion with us.
All right, yeah. Okay, flip flop it. That's fine.
Okay, let me bring them over. Kristen. Okay, so Al is here on behalf of the wastewater study committee, and Kristen, who is the conservation restriction manager for SVT.
All right, there I am.
Hello. Hello?
Hi.
There we go.
Let me know when we're ready to go.
Go.
Okay. Hi, I'm Al Hamilton. I'm a member of the select board and I'm chair of the wastewater study commission. And I'm here today because our friends at SVT have joined us and wanted to give you a really a very quick briefing on what the wastewater study committee is doing, and in particular, at least some ideas about potential uses of the golf course. And I do want to just address Mr. Farrington, who sent me an email since he'd been doing some diligence, and I will be digging into the constraints that he has brought forward. So as we discussed in when I briefed the commission a couple weeks ago, Southborough doesn't have a wastewater treatment plant. We had an opportunity to build one in the very early 70s and passed because we were worried the town might get to 10,000 people. Well, it got there. And we believe that building a wastewater treatment plant is important to the economic health of the community, particularly as it relates to Route 9. In the process, we've hired some consultants to help us begin developing some grants to get technical expertise. And I should mention that everything I'm saying here is incredibly preliminary. We've been at this about 6 months, and these are ideas. There is absolutely nothing cast in stone. And so a wastewater treatment plant consists of 3 sort of basic parts, as this is all in the prior discussion. A collection network, a plant to treat the effluent, and then a means of disposal. And the 2 means of disposal are typically to outflow it into a body of water or to discharge it, treated effluent, into the ground, similar to a septic system, except that the treated effluent is far cleaner than that which goes through a septic system. And one of the ideas, and again, these are ideas, there's absolutely nothing cast in stone, is that we might be able to use treated wastewater to irrigate the golf course. And this is a common practice in other parts of the country, typically where water is scarcer than it is here. And so we took a look at the CR, and the CR does permit irrigation. We've had a very, very preliminary discussion with town council. And we felt it appropriate to engage the Conservation Commission to have them understand what it is at least we're thinking about, and as well SVT, because they are the co-holders of the CR. What would be involved is really sort of two principal pieces. And again, this is all very preliminary. We could provide treated wastewater, which could be used in the place of drinking water to irrigate the golf course. And this could be done, during the normal irrigation season. And in order to sort of make that economically viable, we would then also want to, in other parts of the year, discharge that water into the land below the golf course. That would involve some form of a drip irrigation system or a drip system. The intent would be that at the end, the golf course would be as it is today. And this is done commonly in other places. And so this is simply an idea that we're working on, but I thought it appropriate to discuss that in a little more detail and sort of make sure that SVT knew what we were thinking about and and really solicit sort of some input in terms of how they might feel about that. We think that doing something like this has some substantial green benefits. The principal one being that we're no longer using treated drinking water, because if it comes out of the MWRA, it's drinkable water, and we are essentially reusing a resource rather than reusing treated drinking water. So that's really where we are, and I'd be happy to discuss any questions that you have. Again, understanding that this is incredibly preliminary, but I thought it appropriate to at least brief the boards and SVT on what we're thinking about and where we're going.
Question.
Sure.
Maybe I misunderstood. When you said discharge below the golf course,
yes.
What did you mean by below, like the reservoir?
No.
There's nothing below the golf course except for.
There's dirt. There's soil below the golf course. I'm sorry. I'm treating the golf.
Oh, you mean underneath the golf course?
Yes, underneath.
Not like below in gradient.
No, I'm sorry. Yes,
like a hill. Okay.
Yeah, no, underneath.
Underneath.
That's correct. And that this would be a form of a drip system. And again, we don't know what it is. We had a very preliminary discussion. We've hired Weston and Sampson, who are experts in this, to help us develop a grant so that we can actually start thinking about in more technical terms about how to actually do this. We're looking at other sites in town as well. But we would not. This would only be for the discharge of the water. The plant would be located someplace else, the plant being the place where raw sewage is treated and converted into treated effluent.
Are you familiar with the plans that are going through the golf course committee about their
Yes, I'm aware that they're currently developing an irrigation system. We are probably. I'm a notorious optimist, and so we are 5 years minimum away from first flush, if you will. So I don't want to interrupt that plan because it's a work in motion. I would assume, and again, this is subject to substantial technical review, that the actual above ground irrigation, as the sprinklers and the likes, would be as capable of distributing treated effluent as they are drinking water. The effluent that comes out of these plants is in some cases drinkable.
Right. So I guess part of why I brought up the new irrigation plans is just from a cost expense for the town, essentially. Like if you don't have to change anything for what they're planning on doing, or is it going to be additional funds to upgrade what they're doing now?
I can't answer that, you know,
Okay.
as I said, you know, this is very, very early. Certainly if we are going to use the golf course in the manner I've just described, it would be incumbent on us to put the bill to make the changeover.
And I know basically nothing about this whole process. So I guess
Join the
from
club.
I think my biggest concern is from a safety perspective for people on the golf course, but also the habitat and, you know, species that we want to be protecting that are using the golf course. Is there any sort of like risk that the effluent discharge could be contaminated and hadn't gone through the process properly? Is there a safeguard to prevent that?
So these systems are intensely monitored.
Okay.
So in fact, I went and visited the wastewater treatment plant in Westboro, and I bet you nobody knows where it is unless you really go and look. And if you're a factory nerd, and I am, you know, sewage comes in one end and it goes through their process, and 36 hours later, drinking water or drinkable water leaves at the other end. And there are, you know.
Did you taste it?
I did not, you know,
Okay.
It's funny, but you know, everybody says it's drinkable. And in fact, I mean, it flows directly into the Assabet River. It's quite literally the headwaters of the Assabet River. So somebody downstream is probably splashing in it. You know, the same thing is true in Marlboro for their facility. You know, it goes through a multiple filters and sanitizing stations. And it's really quite an impressive process. So in any event, you know, these things are tested daily. There are very strict EPA and DEP guidelines for how you operate one of these plants. You have to have, the operators have to be licensed, and you typically these plants are not managed by towns. Towns hire companies whose expertise is in this area. And you know, the one we actually spoke to a company called Veolia, which runs the Westboro plant, and is a huge company, and they manage plants all over the world. So this is not something, you know, where the town hires a couple of workers to monitor. This is something you pay professionals to take care of. So to answer your question, this is a common thing. It is very common in places like Florida and the Southwest, where water is scarcer than it is here. So it is a well understood set of technologies.
Okay. Do you know if they can filter out PFAS? Any of those chemicals?
I do not know the answer to that.
Okay.
I don't know that anybody can, but
yeah.
You know.
Just with it all, you know, it's all fresh in my mind with everything going on. So okay.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things I will say is you know, before this would require extensive permitting. And during that permitting process, that is when, you know, questions like that should get answered, you know, and, you know, again, we've got a committee of 6 people. We got a couple of civil engineers on it, one of whom was actually done wastewater stuff. But at the end of the day, we're going to be hiring, you know, a company that builds these plants on a regular basis, assuming we go forward. There's no guarantee we're going to go forward yet, but we're still trying. You got to figure out how to pay for it too.
Right.
So I believe that through the CR and the golf course, what is allowable is would be no building infrastructure there, but only the allowable dispersion of any liquids, if you will.
Yes.
Through a sprinkler system or what have you, right? And I believe in town meeting, back when, the golf course was being talked about, was that any wastewater system located on the property could only serve the town safety complex, Woodward School, and the golf course.
Yes.
Right,
Kevin
so-
brought that to my attention 2 hours ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So meaning that you wouldn't be able to have any sort of a building complex there, but I believe that you would still be allowed to have affluent come from someplace.
Yeah.
So I just found in the CR, that same language that was in the town vote from 2017. And it does say it can only serve those buildings and no other facilities. So that, I think that could be a problem.
Yeah.
It doesn't, Kevin, does it mean only serve those buildings?
The public safety building, the Woodward School, and the golf course buildings, and no other facilities or buildings.
Oh, so no affluent from any place else other than source from there.
I think so. That's
Okay.
the
All
way I
right.
Yeah. Obviously, my next step is going to be to talk to town council and, you can't do it, or, so, in any event, my intent here is to make sure that people know what we're thinking about.
Mhm.
And in particular, the Conservation Commission and SVT, who are the CR holders. And then, sort through this, this may not come to pass either as a project, or we may, settle on a different site. There are other sites that we are thinking about.
I think one of the other things to keep in mind long-term is, if the golf course, for whatever reason, ends up not being a golf course, the CR restricts the uses from that point on to be natural habitat, which we wouldn't be irrigating natural habitat.
Yeah.
So not, like I said, not that there's any plans for that to be the situation, but just something to think of long term.
Yeah. I don't think, we have to think about that. I'm in as much listening mode as I am in sales mode here,
And then I also wanted to make sure that you're aware that when the property was purchased, CR was being negotiated, the town wanted to have the golf course be certified by Audubon. It's like a golf course natural habitat certification. And they have very strict requirements for what would be allowed on site. There's been an initial review by this group. And I've heard through the grapevine that there's going to be a committee being formed again to move that certification forward. So that would be another factor that you would want to make sure that you look at.
Okay.
So I had a question about the irrigation part of it, because the golf course only irrigates in the summer, right? And this would be, year-round water coming onto that property. What happens to it in the winter? Is it still just dispersed into the ground?
Yeah, that's the common practice, is that, if you go onto the USDA soils maps, you get, a picture of the soil's capacity to absorb water. And then you guys, I'm sure, probably telling you stuff you guys already know. Clearly, a next step, if on whatever site we might choose for discharge, is to do let's see, they just told me that this word is a hydrogeologic sampling, to actually, drill cores to understand exactly what the soils are that you're dealing with, because obviously you've got to just like if you design a septic system, you have to match the flows into the soils with the capacity of the soils to absorb them. But yeah, so we have systems like this all over town. So for example, this is a system that's no different than the one in Madison Place. There's another one, you would never know it even exists, that's across from Finn School. It's not actually, it actually serves about 88 homes. You know, this is mature.
No, but that's a treatment facility.
Yes, it is a treatment.
It has a building, it's a treatment facility.
Yeah, there's a treatment facility.
Yeah.
But there's also where there's a treatment facility, there's a discharge area.
There is, yeah.
Yeah. And
It's
so
like, it has a huge leach field.
yeah, and this is yeah, I guess my point was, this is a mature technology. People understand how to do this. We're not trying to invent anything new. Again, this is one of the sites that we are at least thinking about, and we want to make sure we flesh out issues related to the site. And you know, whether it's even possible to go forward, and that's why we're sitting here talking to you folks.
So there's 3, if you will, wastewater treatment facilities in the town of South Road that I'm aware of. There's a
Yeah.
one, Al, that you just mentioned, that's, you know, over in
Madison Place. And
there's
then-
Madison Place, is the one that across the street from, you know, Finn School, and there's the St. Mark's.
Yep, those are the big ones. I think there are actually 6, but some of them are
Oh, there's a Fay School too, that's out in the
there's a Fay School there, and then there's one that's been built but isn't actually being used in the downtown area near the medical complex. And I think there's one more. So
well, that's just a leach field down. That's a big septic system. That doesn't have a treatment facility. But that aside, back to Kevin's question, you know, in order to be able to infiltrate the you know, the treated water into the ground soil, you would have to have some sort of pipage or something. I don't think you could just think that it's going to have the soils that exist there now just absorb it, right? So in the summertime, you're sprinkling on the top, it's going down. In the wintertime, you can't do that because the ground's frozen on top.
yeah, you have to have well, again, this is what this consultants and Bob Moss, who actually built Madison Place, says the water's actually fairly warm, and his infiltration is roughly a foot below grade, which is I was surprised at. Again, you know, these are, but yes, there would have to be an infiltration system on the golf course to handle the flow when we couldn't irrigate.
Right. So the point I'm making is that when Moss built Madison Place, it was built to do that, right? The golf course has got irrigation pipes today.
Yeah.
In order to infiltrate in the wintertime, it would have to be dug up and something installed.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, I just want to make that point.
Oh yeah, no. We're I'm not going to gild the lily here. You know, the intent would be to leave the surface the same as it was when we started. But you know,
Right, but you're essentially going to build, God knows, a leach field there for all intents and purposes.
A leach field of some form, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no
It
question.
wouldn't just be plumb into the sprinkler system there and let it just spit out.
Yeah, it would plug into the sprinkler system when you needed water to irrigate, and when you didn't, it would go through the subsoil. It would go to the system beneath the golf course,
which would have to be built.
Which would have to be built. There's yes.
Okay, that's the only point I was trying to make.
Yeah, no, we're saying the same thing. It you know, it doesn't really work economically to just provide the wastewater, because you got to run a pipe up 85, and that sort of stuff runs about $1.5 million a mile today.
Thanks.
So the other thing is just looking at the map and where the golf course sits, it's kind of on a peninsula surrounded on 3 sides by the Sudbury Reservoir. And are there any concerns that state would have about that? Or
again, I'm not an expert. I believe the answer is 400 feet. I actually took a look at a facility in Acton that is 200 feet from, I believe it's the Assabet River, where their leach field is 200 feet from the Assabet River. So, you know, yes, we've had some very preliminary discussions with DEP. And clearly, you know, we'll have to have a discussion with the MWRA. This is a journey of 1,000 miles, and we're just trying to take the first couple steps. But yeah, I you know, in terms of, you know, making sure that you guys understand what we're thinking about, and we, you know, giving you a chance to chime in early and tell us we're crazy, is important.
All right. In terms of telling you you're crazy, is there any other questions or anything we have for Kristen, who's our SVT rep here tonight, that we need to have asked or answered?
I just want to say that I want to thank Al for bringing this forward. I mean, anybody who was at town meeting knows what a hot issue this is, not having the ability to develop Route 9. And this is one of the linchpins, is having the ability to safely manage wastewater. And so we are looking for creative solutions, and it will be very helpful if we can vet this further and understand if this could help our town maintain the all that we value in that that property at the golf course, while also achieving some of the objectives we have for economic development.
Oh, I think I should leave on a high note. If there are no more questions, I'll let you guys.
I just want to make sure that, you know, any other questions that we might have, you know, we have Kristen O'Brien for SCT here tonight. So if there's anything else that, you know, she has to ask, or anybody want to ask her with respect to the CR and the golf course, I just want to, you know, open that up for an opportunity now.
No, I have no other questions. I think this is just a lot to digest, and like
Yeah.
Al said, this is the very beginning. You know, we have a lot more learning to do. You know, and if we can make this move forward, great. But I will say that I'm going to have our attorney review the CR just as a precaution, just so we can get some input.
Sure. Yeah, we
Makes
can have
good sense.
your lawyer talk to our lawyer and bill us both. Yeah, and by the way, Kristen, yeah, my email address is on the town website. I'm a member of the select board, so
Okay.
feel free to reach out, or if you'd like me to come and talk to more folks at SVT, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Al.
Okay.
All right, with that, we'll close on this topic, and we'll move on to 25 and 27 Parkerville Road, potential violation. Thank you, everybody.
So this one is fun. Melinda can probably help me out a little bit here, because her and Ben went out to the site. The background on this is that we were notified by the landscaper for the owners at 25 Parkerville that the owner at 27 is dumping yard waste, you know, grass clippings, leaves, that type of stuff. It had originally started on their property, and then they had their property surveyed, said, please don't dump on our property. So the dumping has shifted, but is now on town property, and also within potentially buffer zone. So it's a little concerning. The pile is quite large. I was very surprised to see the size of it. So I think what I need from you guys tonight is some clarity on how you want to move forward. There is kind of two simultaneous issues. So one being that there's dumping near a resource area and within the buffer zone, which is jurisdictional to you guys, but also that there is mowing and dumping taking place on the town property, which would be handled through, I believe, the building department and zoning enforcement. I did reach out to town council on that, and he said it would probably fall under trespass. But just wanted to get your opinion on how you wanted to move forward in partnership with building, kind of like how we did 200 Southville Road in the beginning for that one. I hope this one doesn't go as far as that did. So.
Thought that was a great summary, Laura. Yeah, this is a property. It's got a long stretch across the back that is being mowed that is not only it's sort of in that wetland area, but is also townland. And then it backs up to the marsh that then backs up to where Trout Air was built, to give you a perspective of where we're talking about. And in front of that area that's being mowed, there's two properties, and one property owner is dumping onto his neighbor's property, which is in the buffer zone, and he's also dumping in a long line onto town-owned property. So there is a sort of a confusing situation where there's conflict between the neighbors, but it's affecting us because of our responsibilities for ensuring that this dumping isn't happening in ways that harm the wetlands. So Ben actually didn't think that the mowing was as big an issue because the mowing had been going on for such a long time that it was almost not changing what had already been existing for a very long time. But it was the dumping that was the big issue, and so it's not just stopping, but it's also removing.
So is the dumping being done by the neighbors or the landscaper?
That there's a neighbor, one of the people is dumping onto what is the other neighbor's yard. Now that the survey has been completed, and then there are signs up warning each other not to cross the line. And
The Hatfields and McCoys.
it very much it feels tense, and
Okay.
then the dumping section is so long that it actually goes straight onto town-owned land, as I
And
understood it.
did I hear that a landscaper was involved here somehow?
There's a landscaper who actually went and met us to look at what was happening because they have been mowing the property of the people who aren't doing the dumping.
Okay.
And so they had a concern. I think that the property owner who's not doing the dumping would actually like to remove the material on his land. So that's one thing that would probably be, giving them permission to go forth and do that. But I think there's a bigger problem that somebody is continuing to dump inappropriately.
Oh, okay. So if we have a property owner with a landscaper that's willing to comply, that seems good to me.
Yes.
If we have a property owner that is dumping themselves, they're in violation. So I would send them a notification that, they're in violation because they're dumping their grass clippings, whatever, leaves, debris, whatever, within, is it in the wetland itself?
I don't know if it's technically wetland or buffer zone, but it's.
Oh, okay, but in any event, it's illegal dumping. So I would suggest we send them a letter letting them know that.
Okay.
And the compliant landowner with the landscape present, we give them the permission to remove what they've done and continue to behave. I mean, that to me, that seems the path to take. Open to conversation.
I think there's an added question of removing the materials that are not on the property owners. Like the property owner that's willing to clean up his own land, he's not really looking to clean up town land. So the person who's dumping should have responsibility for doing that.
Okay, so the landowner with the landscaper does not want to clean up more than what they're responsible for.
That was my impression.
Okay, and there is more dumping there that has occurred. Okay, I get it. So I would have the landowner with a landscaper clean up what they think they're responsible for and send an enforcement order to the other one, telling them to clean up their dumpage.
Okay.
Do you just want it to be a letter from the commission to start and then set some sort of timeline?
Yeah, I think it's a letter
meeting?
from the commission that, you know, we notify them that they're in violation and they need to, you know, clean up the dumping, and they need to cease and desist the dumping
Okay,
and clean up what they've dumped.
okay. Do you want to set
And
like a timeline to monitor progress, or have them attend the next meeting?
I wouldn't have them attend the next meeting. I would give them, you know, a month or so to do it. I mean,
Okay,
something like that. I'm up to the commission for any kind of a timeline. You know, but you know, I would give them a little bit of time to do it.
okay.
And then if they don't, well, next steps.
Okay.
Melinda, what do you think?
I think that's good. I'd like to confirm with Ben since he was there too and he had lots of ideas. But I think that we're on the right track here. And I do think that, you know, that this is a situation where somebody who's been dumping could say, why do you think I did it? How do you know it's me? I don't want to pay for cleaning that up. And so this is where I think it's very sensitive. And that's why I'm glad, Laura, you've started thinking about the legal case as well. Sounds like there is some video evidence of this activity happening. And so it may be that it's wise to have the lawyer take a peek at the letter.
Yeah, I'm kind of the nice guy approach at the beginning. Hey, you know, look, you know, we'd like to have you go out there and clean this thing up before, you know, we start throwing hand grenades at each other.
I agree with that too, but
You know.
if you're setting a tone though that you really need to fix it, you want to make sure that we are saying it in a way that the lawyers wouldn't be horrified by.
You know, I mean, I think we have a letter that we've typically sent many times before saying, hey, you know, you're in violation. You need to clean this thing up, blah, 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 blah. And then if that doesn't happen, then you know, we take the next steps.
That sounds good.
Okay. And I can include like the relevant language from both the bylaw and the WPA within the letter too. So,
you know, I don't think starting a rock fight on the onset is going to be very beneficial to anybody.
No, I think this one's going to be hard enough as it is. So,
Okay.
okay. I will draft that and I will send that over to you, Mark, just so you can review it. And let me know.
Okay. I need to sign something still?
Nope, we're all set.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say I'll be in tomorrow morning to do it.
Oh, no. We're all set.
All right, good.
I was able to use your electronic signature.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So,
All right. We have Chestnut Hill Farm updates. Anything there?
nothing there.
Nothing there. Anything else to bring up?
Yes, unfortunately. So 12 Wood Street, we just issued an order of conditions for this property. That order was to cover a porch, a deck, and a septic replacement. We were just notified this week that they have demoed 3 of the 4 walls of the house, which goes significantly beyond the scope, both of their building permit and the order of conditions. So we've been talking to the contractor for the project and just kind of let him know that he is outside what is permitted. And you know, that further, he hasn't satisfied any of the pre-construction conditions within his order and has not had the pre-construction meeting, which is required, which I think is unfortunate because if he had done that, this probably could have been avoided. So a little bit of background is they were always going to do a remodel, but it was going to be mostly interior, and then replacing of siding and stuff like that. When they opened up the walls, they realized that they were rotting. He had a building inspector come out and asked if they could take down the walls. The building inspector said yes. Which he probably shouldn't have done, but here we are. So I had sent this out to Mark and Ben, and they had suggested an amended order of conditions. I did want to get some clarity on it from you guys because the site plan itself will not be changing. They're staying within the same footprint, but obviously there's potential for a larger impact because they did a lot of demo and they will now need to rebuild the house. So I just wanted to double check to see if you guys wanted to do an administrative amendment or if you felt that this required a full amended order of conditions. Either one is fine. The contractor has already sent me a ton of materials for the amended order, so we'd be fine with that. But I just want to make sure we're following the right path.
It's such a big change. I don't know what we've done in the past, Laura. Do you have a sense of when we've had something that's so far beyond what we've talked about? Do we actually ask them to file differently?
So I've seen it go a couple of ways. You know, we just did an administrative amendment for 200 Turnpike. That was a minor change to the site plan. You know, I think my question with this is, you know, is it something that we could handle administratively because the site plan itself is not changing? You know, so the plan that we approved won't be changing. It's just the scope of the work is changing, if that makes sense.
Do we know how far down they're going? Like, are they pouring new foundations? Are they?
I don't think they're pouring new foundation, but it is down to the foundation that they demoed. So literally just one wall standing. So
I mean, if they're not coming in and digging a new foundation or anything, and they've already demolished it, I'm thinking the site plan's not really changing, right? We get the aerial view and it's not going to be any different from what we approved.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I might be okay with the administrative amendment. I'll let other people weigh in on that.
Yeah, it does. You're making a good point, Kevin. It's the same footprint, and it's already they're not digging a new foundation. One of the things I really liked about this project is that they were replacing a failed septic system and adding some native plants to the back. So I think the elements that we asked for, if we continue to see those going forward, I think it's reasonable.
So we believe that just, fixing in place.
Yes. So he sent an email earlier that, let me just find
But
it.
I mean, I'm in agreement with everybody else that if they're fixing in place, there really is no impact to us.
Yeah.
Unless
So-
they're, increasing impervious and they're, impacting more of the buffer zone.
Yeah, he says the structural layout remains unchanged. It was just the condition of the building necessitated the removal and the replacement of the walls rather than fixing them.
Yeah. So to me, that's more of a building department issue, not us.
Okay.
They can determine whether or not the one wall left standing is viable.
Yeah, I mean, there were other building issues with that happening, but so would you guys be okay with just doing an administrative amendment just on file? We can add it to our next agenda.
Is there one needed though? If they haven't changed anything to do with the footprint in what we have jurisdiction over.
Yeah, I mean, the house
even
is
when
within
needed.
that 200-foot riverfront.
Right, but whatever they're doing within the footprint of it is really not our concern. As
Okay.
long as they stay within the footprint.
Okay, so there's no concern about trucks or equipment or erosion controls that would need to be adjusted.
Different than what they had in the past? I wouldn't think so.
Okay, That's fine.
Things-
I just wanted to make sure. I
Yeah.
don't want to have them do a public hearing if they don't have to do it. You know, it's expensive, it's time consuming.
Yeah, I mean, if they're within the footprint and they're, with what we had permitted, I think they're, I mean, it's just building infrastructure pieces. I mean, they were doing a septic system, they were doing a deck, right? That was all building equipment and trucks coming and going anyway. So I don't think there's anything that needs to be covered.
Okay.
Yeah, if it was before demolition, we might have said, keep the equipment on the driveway side of the house, but that's a little bit too late already. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Okay. All right. I'll let them know. They'll be really happy to hear that. And while I'm in touch with them, I will make sure they actually schedule a pre-construction meeting so
There you
that
go.
we can get that done. So,
Okay.
okay, great. Thank you. Another one that I wanted to bring up, 250 Turnpike Road. They have an open order of conditions for that contractor's yard building. And we just lost somebody. I think we just lost Liz. So the approved plan shows that the contractor's yard building kind of straddles that zone line. So the property is, I'm blanking now, industrial. So it's industrial, and then the back half of the property is residential A. Through planning board and some other modifications that they've had to make, they are looking to shift the building north a little bit just to get it out of that residential A zone. So they wanted to know if this would require a formal amended order of conditions or if this could also be handled administratively. I have a plan if that would make it easier. Do you want to see it?
So, I mean, if they're just moving it feet and not changing anything else,
Yeah, let me pull up the plan just so.
probably administrative, but
Just so you guys can see, have a better idea of what I'm talking about. So this is our approved plan under the current order. So you can see like this zone line just kind of cuts through the building here. So they're looking to shift it up just a little bit so that the entire building would be within this industrial zone.
are they changing any of the elevations?
I don't think so. I think it was just a shift up. I mean, the good thing about that is more of the building will be outside of the buffer zone. But they didn't tell me about any other changes. It was just a scooch of the building.
That's a technical term, a scooch.
A scooch.
Their septic is under there though, right? In front of that building. So would they have to move that?
That's a great question. I would think so.
Oh, I'm guessing probably not because
Well,
I mean, we put septics underneath driveways. But Kevin, good point.
I mean, it's moving in the right direction, right? It's out further away from the wetlands. So
yeah.
Yeah, and then there's the detention basin there on the right, that rectangle. Up just a little bit from your cursor, that right there.
Here.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's being impacted at all because of some of that's in the commercial zone too. They probably need to come talk to us
Okay.
to determine, whether it's a NOI or just an administrative change. I think we have questions as to the detail here.
Okay. I will let them know. We can do that.
Did they say why?
I think, if I recall correctly from some zoning conversations that we've had, there's concern with the neighbors about having this commercial use within a residential zone. There was a special permit from, I think, the 1980s, maybe, that had said there was going to be no construction in the residential zone, which makes the 40B proposal a little interesting, but that was a big concern for the neighbors, was having this commercial use within the residential zone, because you have neighbors over here. And this is going to have a significant amount of traffic with the contractor trucks going in and out and materials being stored and stuff like that. So I think it's just to increase that buffer with the residential zone.
Yeah, so as we talk about this more, it's more than a scooch. We definitely want to have them come in.
Okay.
Because the 40B proposals behind them, I don't believe that the neighbor that's to the south of that building would care, because the owner of the building owned that house. I don't know if they sold it, what they did with it. The one in the corner, they didn't get. So
good point.
Yeah, they should come in and talk to us.
Okay. I'll have them do that. I'll have them come to the next meeting. Let's see. So also, with 250 Turnpike, Joe did go out to the site to take a look at the stream relocation, just to make sure that everything was looking good. And Joe, I don't want to speak for you, but most of it looked good. There was just some minor erosion, but no significant issues there. I haven't heard anything on the formal restoration plan being filed. I reached out to Brian today, but haven't heard a response. So hopefully they get that to us soon. But I'll stay on top of it. And then the last thing for this is they completed the vernal pool migration study under the 40B project. I uploaded a copy of that to the SharePoint for you guys. So if you want to take a look at that, the ZBA will be discussing this on June 18th. And it is currently with Joe to be peer reviewed to see if there's anything that needs to be modified on the site plan based on the results of that. So if you guys want to put together comments at the June 12th meeting, I can bring those over to ZBA when I go to that.
Okay.
Other than that, 56 Deerfoot, just wanted to touch base on this really quick. This was a property, so the homeowner had reached out to me because they were not aware that there were wetlands on their property when they bought the house in 2019. In 2020, they did some brush clearing, and they have since found out that there are wetlands and that they might need to do mitigation. They found this out because they're trying to sell their house. So when I looked at GIS, there was more than just tree removal. There was a lot of tree removal, but there was also a patio, a shed type structure, vegetable gardens, and a chicken coop that were all put either in a wetland or in the buffer zone. She had asked if somebody would come out to take a look. I had offered to have Joe come out and had him scheduled to do a site visit, and she said that they were not available, and then never responded when I asked if it was okay if he went, even if they weren't home. And I have not heard anything since. So I just wanted to kind of keep this on your radar and see how you guys wanted to proceed. I do know that if the property sells, we have limited time to address it with the new owner as well. So I just didn't want this to completely disappear.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I think they talked to somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so they've gone radio silent.
They have.
We can't really go and park in front of the house and go stomp in the backyard.
Yeah.
So.
So maybe it's something we keep on the back burner. The good news is that we do those homeowner letters. So I will know when the house sells. If you want me to notify you.
So do they have a certificate of compliance for what was originally built? Or are they going to get flagged at closing?
No, like there were no permits at all for this.
Oh, they weren't. No, not for this, but for any of the original building.
Let me see. Let me pull it up really quickly. Because I was very surprised to see the extent of the work that was done. Let me see what we have.
I'm just curious that if they, if they sell, if the closing's gonna get blocked because they have an outstanding order of conditions.
Yeah. There's a lot on Deerfoot. Hold on. I don't know that we have anything. We have one at 54.
And help me remember, if I go up Deerfoot, are the even street addresses on the right or the left? Do we know?
You're asking the most directionally challenged person, but I can find that for you.
Okay, well,
You going north or south?
going south.
Going south, the evens will be on your left.
Correct.
Is that the case everywhere?
No, I'm just looking at a map.
Oh, okay.
56 is on the same side as Neary. That's how all the evens are on the same side as Neary.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I don't see any permits for this. We have 54, we have 58.
Okay.
But I don't see anything for 56.
That's interesting because
Yes.
Yes.
if the other two houses have got permits, it's wet back there.
Yes, and actually 56 looks significantly more wet than 54. So
Yeah, the map, to the chair, the mass mapper shows it, the wetlands closest to 56, then closer than on the other properties, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
it's something to keep in mind.
yeah, thanks. Okay, what else you got?
Breakneck Hill. It was a roller coaster. So we started restoration this week, which was very exciting. And then this morning, Joyce notified me that a killdeer nest was found on the site. So the nest is, let me bring up the site plan just so I can show you approximately where it is. So the killdeer nest is somewhere in here in this area. So this is an existing intermittent stream. This is what they're calling the pond because they're going to connect these and then this will be more like a ponded area. So the nest is somewhere in between here where it's not yet connected, but they need to connect. I am not sure how familiar you guys are with this species. I learned a lot today. So this is a bird that's protected under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. So it gets a little complicated, but prior to April, you could not remove or disturb the nest. You could deter them from nesting, but you couldn't remove or disturb the nest. There have since been some environmental protection rollbacks with the federal administration. So that's no longer prohibited if it's incidental, but it's being challenged in the courts. So I was told today that that is kind of a legally gray area. So where that leaves us is that we have a nest. We have 4 eggs in it. The incubation period starts once 4 eggs are laid. We do not know when the 4th egg was laid, so we don't know where in that timeline we are. But the total incubation period is 24 to 28 days. So we're somewhere in that realm. We cannot move the nest because it will fail. If there's too much disturbance in the area and it causes the adults to leave the nest will also fail. So kind of what we can do, the short version, is we could set up a perimeter around the nest, fencing. TRC explained to me that, you could probably start with like a 30-foot radius. And if that's too disruptive, we could expand it to say 50 feet. obviously the larger the perimeter, the more protected the birds will be. The smaller the perimeter, the more restoration work we can get done around them. So we're kind of in a situation where we need to find a balance between protecting the nest, but also trying not to delay restoration, because that will be expensive. So, if we put up the perimeter around the nest, there is work that can still take place. So they can continue to crush the rock. They can size the rock to the 3-inch minus. And then they can backfill, install topsoil, and hydroseed the areas outside of that protected area. While the birds are on site, they cannot do any of the stream restoration. They can't obviously backfill topsoil and hydroseed that area. And because they have to wait to do that till the birds are gone, they can't remove the access road and start the meadow restoration until they're gone. So kind of want to get your opinion on what you want to do and how you want to handle this. Depending on where we are in the incubation period, it's likely that we're going to get to a point where strategic won't be able to do any additional work until the birds are gone. The good news, I guess, is once they hatch, we can use some methods to encourage the chicks to leave the site. If we don't do that, we'll have to wait about like a month until they fledge. So that leaves us with a couple options when we get to the point where they have to stop work. Option one is downtime. It's essentially us paying strategic to reserve the equipment and reserve their time in order to remobilize pretty quickly once the birds are gone. They don't recommend this unless the delay is only going to be 2 or 3 days, because it costs $2,500 per day to do that. The other option is to demobilize and then remobilize, in which they would remove all of the equipment off the site. They would likely go start another project in the meantime. And then, depending on their schedule, they could remobilize, come back to the site, and start restoration again. That's going to cost us $7,000. The issue with that is that if they completely demobilize, there's no guarantee of when they can come back and start the project. So we could be looking at extended delays with that. I did reach out to Melissa because I can't. So, her thoughts are that the eggs could hatch anywhere in the next week to 4 weeks. And that the best case scenario is that the eggs could hatch in a week and the project could move on after the chicks are encouraged to move on. She recommends that as much work be done around the nest as possible to prevent any delays. And she said, given the project schedule, there may be some delay, but she's hopeful that it would be days and not weeks. She said killdeer like the flat gravelly surface. And so having a stagnant site right now is probably what attracted to them in the first place. You know, nobody's been there for a couple months. So it is the end of the nesting season. So hopefully we won't have any more that show up, but you know, having work done on the site around the nest would also deter other birds from nesting there. So she said, if the area to be fenced off makes the restoration area largely affected, so more than 60% of it cannot be completed, that is when she would recommend to demobilize. But if there's a majority of the work that can be completed outside the vicinity of the nest, then it would be best to just move forward. So that's kind of where we're at. I did not think a bird would derail my entire day, but here we are. So I just wanted to see how you guys felt about it, see what kind of perimeter you would like to set up, see how you wanted to progress. I have a meeting scheduled with Strategic and TRC for 9 o'clock tomorrow morning to update them, just so we can figure out how to move forward. So I feel like that was a lot I just threw at you. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm in two places.
Mm.
One, I don't feel that a 30-foot perimeter is going to provide enough buffer, and I think there's too much risk in that.
Okay.
Personally. Then there's a 50-foot perimeter, and I have no idea how much that's going to allow them to move forward. And if it costs $7,000 for them to demobilize and come back later when the risk is zero, I think I'm in that camp.
Okay.
And if more birds come because there's nothing going on and they nest, that's great. You know, nothing's been done in a couple of months. I don't know that there's any urgency that it gets done in the next 4 to 6 weeks. You know, opinions from others?
I think that's logical. What you propose, Mark. I agree with you that the nature of the work, I think 30 feet probably is not enough to make a nesting bird family comfortable with all the rocks being smashed. And I can't imagine the noise and dust and everything else that's going to be happening when they're doing that type of work. It is unfortunate, the timing. I wish it would just be a week, but we don't know if it'll just be a week. And I'm not.
And then once they hatch, the chicks have got to, mature to the extent that they can, flee the nest. Right. So I don't think we're talking a few weeks. Like 1 or 2 or 3. We may be talking 6 weeks.
I did learn today that killdeer chicks are ambulatory within 24 hours. So they're up and out of the nest within 24 hours of hatching. So then that's when, we would have a
They're
special.
not flying though, are they?
They're not flying, but they're not scavenging, foraging for food, and they're able to leave the nest, and they stay close to their parents and stuff, but they're not like baby robins that are, they can't leave the nest for several weeks.
So at that point, you could encourage them essentially to relocate.
Yeah, and that would be done with an environmental specialist biologist through TRC.
So we're talking, if you delay a day, it's 2,500. The next day, it's 2,500. The next day, it's 2,500. If they demobilize and then remobilize, it's 7,000.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a delay in the progress that goes on. And
Well, I think there is another question though, Mark, and that's how long is it going to take to establish the ground cover? And when will we need to be putting down seed to have it grow so that we're in good shape for next fall and winter?
yeah, so I thought about that too. And I think that, we're probably going to think about putting ground cover down in the next growing season, which is the fall. Right. So I think we're going to miss the spring.
There's a chance of that, especially if we demobilize. Yeah, that was a concern that Strategic brought up, is that we would miss kind of the prime seeding season. And they would need to, if there was any erosion that took place, especially because we have those SWIP inspections that they do. So TRC comes out and checks for erosion and stormwater issues. And if there's any issues during the time that they are demobilized, Strategic will have to mobilize a crew to come out to fix that. And he said that would cost us $750 per mobilization to address those issues. So I just want to make sure you guys have all the information.
Yeah.
So
I'm putting my wildlife habitat on.
Mm-hmm.
And, are we going to sacrifice protected birds in favor of crushing rocks and growing grass? I don't know. I don't think I'm there personally.
Is this something where you guys would be comfortable if they set up a 50-foot perimeter and they continue to do as much work as possible and then stopped and demobilized? Or are you looking for them to just stop work entirely at this point?
So I'm sitting here not understanding the difference between 30 feet and 50 feet. And as Melinda put it, crushing rocks, making dust, a racket. I mean, what are these going to, what are the, you know, what's the bird family going to think of that? They made a nest here because they thought they're going to be safe and sound,
And I feel
right?
like
And then we're going to come in and,
the risk
you
is
know,
really high. Like if it's too much noise, they're gonna leave. Like there's not gonna be like a warning sign, like they might leave, you know, they're thinking
Yeah.
about leaving, like they're just gonna abandon. So
Okay.
that's a really high risk.
Okay.
I think from a risk standpoint, we got the birds made a nest. They're a protected species. We have to pause.
Okay.
If others don't feel that way, you know, feel free to chime in. But, you know, my wife and I have been struggling because we've had a bird at my house trying to make a nest on our spotlights, and that's a bad place to make a nest. It's right over the garage door. So we've been taking the nest down. You know, they put a few strands of it, we've taken it down. You know, go find someplace else. We've been leaving the stuff in the grass so they continue to use the material, but don't make it on the spotlights. We use the spotlights every day, right? If they make a nest and lay eggs in there, they're not going to live.
Yeah.
It's not a place where they're not being, it's not a wise home. And these birds have established a home, there's eggs in it. We can't chase them away, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think we have to pause.
Okay.
It is what it is.
Yeah. No. The timing is unfortunate. It was so exciting to be like, hooray, we started. Oh, we're stopping.
We're stopping.
So, but that's all right. So I will let them know tomorrow morning to pause all work. So you want them to fully demobilize, like effective tomorrow, kind of thing.
I think that's the most economic thing to do until this situation resolves itself.
Okay. All right.
Based on the information you provided. So
You got
everybody agree?
Support that.
Yes.
Okay.
it. All right.
Kevin, I didn't hear you.
Has there been any feedback from the neighbors about noise and vibration and dust?
I haven't heard anything, but they had just started to crush some boulders, I think, yesterday. So they haven't really gotten too much into the work yet.
Well, there are going to be some brand new property owners in a few days, very close.
Yeah,
But-
that's true. And if it's who I think it is, I think he said he's excited to work with stewardship on, you know, like plantings and stuff like that at the back of the property. So
Excellent. Great.
So, all right. Well, I will let Strategic and TRC know tomorrow, and I will have them demobilize, and then we'll go from there. I think that was
That's it.
all the stuff. The only other thing is we have an official return date for Melissa. Yay!
When is that?
July 7th. She'll be back.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Super.
I'm excited. It'd be good to have her back. I knew she did a lot. I did not realize the full extent of everything.
You've done a
she
great
does.
job in her absence filling in, let me tell you.
Oh, well, thank you.
You've done a super job.
It is, I give her a lot of credit, more than I already did. So she's incredible.
Yeah. Well, you're pretty incredible yourself. You did awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. So, all right. That's
All
all
right,
I
anything
have.
else? All right, sorry for the late meeting, folks. Every once in a while it happens.
Yeah. It's been a while since we've had one, so.
All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right, we lost Liz. Barrington,
Yes.
Upton,
Yes.
Barbara Iglowski,
Yes.
and Pasamato.
Yes.
All right, guys, thank you so much.
All right, enjoy the long weekend.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Enjoy the
Good night.
weekend. Yep.
Bye.